Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makakwadash, that honors the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth and salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwathim. And listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Okwai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, um, it's going to be a little bit about fathers instructing their sons. And what inspired this lesson was a quote, um, essentially an interview that was done by, what's his actor's name? Anthony Mackie, right? And essentially, he was on a podcast and he was giving an outline of how he raised his sons, and essentially a lot of the comments that he made raised some backlash. People were saying it was toxic. People were saying toxic masculinity. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot, right? And to be honest with you, we live in a society that's overly feminine, overly has an over feminization of the media, and especially the men also, because what they push onto your men is essentially is an agenda to make them more docile, make them more weak, make them more effeminate, right? So what I want to do, I have on the screen here some of the things that he said, right? And what I might do also as well, just to add some context of what I'm speaking of, what I'll do is attach a short clip of some of the things he said in a YouTube and link below, right? So check that out. But here are some of the things he said. So I have it the quote of some of the things he said on the screen here. So it says, on raising four sons, I keep my boys humble. Like my boys have never owned a pair of Jordans. My boys don't do all that internet fly shit. I could be the biggest star in the world. Don't let me catch you being stupid. My oldest gets it, my 15-year-old. He tells the other ones, like, yo, don't make dad mad. Once you get one that's right, he's going to straighten the other ones out. So essentially, what he's doing as a father, he is giving his son understanding of how to conduct themselves, how to behave, right? As a matter of fact, what is it? Something that King David said about his behavior. Let me get that. I think that's in Psalms. Okay, this is Psalms 101 verse 2. And it says, I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. When thou wilt come unto me, I will walk within mine house with a perfect heart. Right? So it says in the AMP, I will behave myself and follow the way of integrity. When will you come to me? I will walk in my house in integrity and with a blameless heart, right? So essentially, there's a way to conduct and raise your children, right? So they grow up with proper conduct. But in this society, they demonize these things because they want our children, especially the sons, they want them to be docile and more weak and more effeminate, and to essentially take on the philosophies of the serpent, right? And they push this very, very subtly, right? The scriptures talk about how the serpent was more subtle than any beast in the field. So what they do is they push it, and they get Jake to push it in the American media, right? They get them to push it in the music, they get them to push it in the TV shows, they get them to push it in how do you call those things, like podcasts, your favorite celebrities, your sports players, right? You see multiple facets of our people, our young Israelite men, or Israelite men in general, pushing the agenda. you know like, for example, last year you had the actor Denzel Washington. He came out and he said, when he was making his last film, I think it was Gladiator, one of the films he made, and he said during one of the films, he kissed a man, right? So you're not even slowly, you're seeing it all throughout, your so-called leaders. Like the scriptures say, the leaders of the people cause you to err because they don't promote a sentiment of righteousness. So let me get a precept actually before I continue. um, what's that? Proverbs. Okay, this is Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. And it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it, right? So, this is the proper way to raise up children. However, in this society, you have a bunch of um, overly feminine um, Israelite men, subscribing to these different ways because they might have come from a lot of broken homes where there is no father around, right? You have a bunch of YNs that are essentially crashing out, and this produces a bunch of ungodly nigger nuggets. You don't have proper sons to essentially grow up and keeping the ways of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. So you have a bunch of essentially overly feminine men, and then you have a bunch of over emotional men, that are just essentially being a terror in the streets. The scriptures talk about ungodly children. As a matter of fact, let me get that. Because that's what you have in this society today. You have a bunch of ungodly children because they don't have any guidance. They don't have any structure. They don't have any precepts, to keep in mind to maintain proper behavior, right? So when they're leaving the household and eventually they try to cleave on to, a wife, they crash out. And then that whole family structure is broken because the Israelite young men at a young age, he's broken. Where was I going? Okay, Sirach 16. Sirach 16 and 1, and it says, desire not a multitude of unprofitable children, neither delight in ungodly sons, though they multiply, and these nigger nuggets multiply like crazy because they don't follow a proper channel and order of how to maintain themselves and grow up and mature, because they don't adhere to the ways of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? They do things very, very backwards. Like, for example, something I was meditating on when it comes to our forefather Jacob. What happened, for him, he worked, and for the 7 years he worked under Laban, and eventually he had his he got his wife Leah, right? So he worked another 7 years, and he, because he loved Rachel, and he acquired Rachel, right? So with that time that he acquired, he built up a lot of substance. He built up himself, and then eventually he was able to, okay, he's able to manage a household. So he has his two wives, right? And they're able to bring forth children, and he's able to manage that first oikos, that first household. That's a household that's in order, right? But in this society, what our people do, especially a lot of our young men, they do things on in a backward sense. So Jake would take on a lot of responsibility, having children with a lot of women and all that kind of stuff, and their minds are out of whack, which leads to their whole family situation out of whack, right? They may not have a stable income or anything like that. So it leads to a broken household, essentially, right? Hopefully all this is kind of piecing together. And really all it goes back to us not being properly cultured in our heritage. And in this society, they want to demonize the importance of having fathers in the household, right? So Further on here, it says the death of the American male. So it was just a thing up in the past 20 years. We've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes, in our communities for one reason or another. But I have raised my boys to be young men, and however you feel about that, you feel about that. But my boys will be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. They would always say thank you. They would always open a door for a lady. They will always make sure their mother is provided for. They will always be men, right? So one of the things I also wanted to touch on is the fact that he said humble, right? Because that's a overrated how do you call it, quality that is so overly that's essentially very, very overlooked in this society, because this society is full of a lot of pride, right? You know, they're prideful in essentially wickedness and ignorance. So I wanted to get a precept on that, because we have a template, we have a benchmark, we have a physician who is exemplified all these things, our Lord and Savior Yahushua, right? And this is part of, proper guidance, proper culture, because a lot of our young men don't have these tenets. They don't have a healthy benchmark. They don't have a healthy leader, a template, a physician to look to, you know, to essentially model themselves after. So that's why you end up with a lot of, nigger nuggets and little Tupacs and little this and little that, little Jean, little Tay, little Uzi Vert, little, they're just little demons basically, right? So this is Luke chapter 8, verse 50. Let's see, hold on. Okay, I'll start at verse 51. And it says, and when he came into the house, he suffered no man to go in, save Peter and James and John and the father and the mother of the maiden. And all wept and bewailed her. But he said, weep not, she is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. And he put them all out, and took her by the hand, and called, saying, Maid, rise. And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway. And he commanded to give her meat. And her parents were astonished, but he charged them, here's the point, he charged them that they should tell no man what was done. In the AMP, it says her parents were astonished by the miracle, but he instructed them to tell no one what had happened. So essentially, how shall I perform this miracle, and he informed the parents, like, yo, listen, don't tell anything, and don't tell anybody what I did, right? He came very, very humbly. He didn't want to essentially boast. He didn't want a lot of people to know what he had just done, right? When the young master asked him, and I'll never forget this, when he said, good master, what should I do to inherit eternal life? What did he say? What Yahushua said was, why callest thou me good? He wasn't in a sentiment of boasting, right? Because we don't boast ourselves, and that is a sentiment we carry also. You understand? So, going back to the point about humility, Yahushua, our benchmark, our template, our stencil, our physician exemplified these traits, right? And this is something a lot of our young men do not have. Anyways, that's pretty much the point. Let me go to I believe it was Kings, actually. I kind of wanted to get a couple accounts here in regards to as a matter of fact, that word charge is what stuck out to me. Hold on, let me get that, just to, because what he's doing is he's giving a charge to his sons, right? And the society looks at that as a bad thing. They look at it as he's being toxic. But when you think about when calamity strikes, these are the kind of people they're going to be looking for. These are the people of value that they're going to be looking for, right? Man, this society is so backwards, man. What was I looking up? Charge. Okay, charge. So here it says the senses of entrust, command, accuse. It says impose a burden of expense, to hold liable for payment. No, that's not it. Is that it? Oh, here it is. Meaning responsibility, burden, pecuniary burden. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Anything committed to another's custody, care, management, right? So that was his charge to his children, to his sons. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. What is our charge as Israelite men? Is to fear the Most High, Yahweh B'Shem Shai, and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man, right? That's one of our charges, right? Feed the flock, right? Another one of our charges, right? Exemplify Yahweh Shai, right? Those two commandments that he simplified for us: to love the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai with all thy heart and all thy soul, and love our brother as ourselves, to roughly paraphrase. That's part of our charge, right? It's part of our responsibility. So, a lot of these, people in the world, accusing, him for, saying the things that he said, it shows you that these people in the world, they don't respect the sentiment of having fathers in the household, giving and providing a sense of duty to their sons, because that's a lot. That's strongly, especially amongst the Israelite so-called community, especially amongst our nation as a whole. That is something that is strongly missing within our culture, right? We've gone away from that. That's why a lot of our people, they despise the prophets, because we come in the spirit. We come in the spirit, through our apostles and elders on down. As prophets, we come in the spirit of fathers, giving guidance and instruction to a rebellious house. Let me get that. Hold on. Okay, this is Ezekiel 2:6. And it says, Thou son of man, be not afraid of them, neither be afraid of their words. Though briars and thorns be with thee, thou dost dwell among scorpions. Be not afraid of their words, nor be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. So our people are very stiff-hearted. They're very stubborn. They have the minds. They know they're wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge, right? Okay, I was going to that account in Kings where King David talks to his son. Just bear with me. This is Slakia. This is 1 Kings 2 verse 1, and it says, Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die, and he charged Solomon, right? So here's our word charge again, giving that instruction, Solomon, saying, I go thy way of all the earth, be thou strong therefore, and show thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy power, and walk in his ways, to keep all his statutes and commandments and his judgments and his testimonies that are written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turneth thyself. And the Lord may continue his word, which he spake concerning me, saying, If thy children take heed to thy way, and walk before me in truth in all their heart, and with their soul, they should not fail thee, said he, a man on the throne of Israel, right? So that was one of his final, kind of like his final speech to, his son Solomon, right? Giving his son, that instructions. The scriptures talk about, though he duplicate himself. As a matter of fact, let me get that. I don't want to mess it up. I'll start at verse 3. So this is Sirach 13:3. And it says, He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy, and before his friends shall rejoice of him. Though his father die, here's the point, though his father die, yet he is as though he were not dead, right? So because he's made essentially a duplicate of himself, just like we're like duplicates, of Yahushai upon earth, right? Exemplifying Yahushai and his character and the way he conducted himself, right? It says, yet he is as though he were not dead. He have left one behind, like behind him, that is like himself, right? So that was what a father does. He duplicates himself, right? And that happens in righteousness as well as it happens in wickedness. On the right hand side, you have it, through our apostles and elders, right? With our big brother Yahushai. And on wickedness, you have it with, little Uzi Vert and all his listeners, and, with Jay-Z and Diddy and, all these different people. The same phenomenon applies on the left hand side, right? But in righteousness is what flourishes, right? A man may be known by his walk, right? And that is what's missing in this culture, and especially amongst our people as a whole. So, that's pretty much the point. I kind of wanted to hit that there, because a lot of people, they get, flustered by a lot of the things he said about masculinity and stuff like that. That's why a lot of these people are going to die, man, if I'm really thinking about it, because, when tragedy strikes, these are the kinds of people, these blue collar people, who do these, laborious jobs, these are the people who keep society running, right? As a matter of fact, Second Ezra talks about that, how there's going to be like a shortage, because a lot of our people are going to go and they're going to go fight in the war too. They're going to go fight in World War III. A lot of them are going to go perish, right? So there's going to be a shortage of good men in this society. You're going to have spirits creative of vengeance and all that. Let me get that. Hold on. Right? Because they want to bash men and, demonize masculinity, right? There is such thing as healthy masculinity. It's not all, they like to say that, masculinity is toxic, and don't let these women tell you that, masculinity is toxic, right? Masculinity is what this world needs, right? So this is 2 Ezra 16 verse 33, and it says, the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. And daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Right? And that's slowly happening right now, because a lot of these women, the divorce rates are, going through the roof. Because a lot of these women don't have husbands, right? Because they're out there playing the harlots, especially our women, right? And there's no one there to help them because they think they can do all good by themselves. Right? So that's slowly trickling down and happening, right? So anyways, I just thought I would bring that out. I thought I would make this something edifying, but hopefully, this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Makakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Until next time, I say, Shalom.